The morning light spilled gold across the stone pillars of Langston Hill's Country Club.
I want an
It should have
explanation
been
right now. You
serene.
humiliated me in front of everyone.
Dew on the
Stop
grass,
shouting. You're causing
the hum
pain.
of
We can solve this
sprinklers,
quietly.
a gentle breeze off the ninth hole. But the air outside the front gate was already tight.
Can't hold me here.
Stop right
Elias,
there.
lying. That's enough, sir.
The voice
Settle
cracked
down.
through the calm
What's your
like
comment on the
glass
allegation?
underfoot. Elias Reed froze mid-step, his hand still adjusting his cufflink. The security guard raised a palm, blocking his way. Beside him, a young manager, mid-30s, sharp jawline, golf cap tilted with arrogance, jabbed a finger toward him. "This area is for members only," the manager said. Each word clipped, deliberate. "Deliveries go around the back." Elias looked at him, not long, not sharp, just long enough to register the pattern, the tone, the assumption. Then he answered quietly, "I'm not here for a delivery." The guard frowned. The manager folded his arms. "So what are you here for?" Elias's voice stayed level. "A meeting. With who?" "The board." The smirk came easy. "Of course," the manager said, stepping closer. "Everyone's meeting the board these days. Maybe check the public park down the street." A few golfers in pastel shirts slowed as they passed, sensing the tension but pretending not to see. The warm sunlight painted their faces gold, but their silence stayed cold. Elias adjusted his tie. His expression didn't move. He'd learned years ago that stillness was stronger than defense. That silence had gravity. The guard tilted his head, studying him. "Name?" "Reed," Elias said. The manager scoffed. "Sure it is." He turned toward the young staffer behind him, barely 20, hesitant, holding a clipboard. "Ryan, check the list. I guarantee he's not on it." Ryan flipped through papers with trembling fingers. The morning breeze caught the corner of a page. His voice was small. "Sir, I don't see a Reed here." The manager smiled, satisfied. "Told you." Elias's gaze shifted to Ryan for a brief second. Not blame, just a quiet message. "It's okay. You're not the problem." Then he looked back at the guard. "Do I look like I'm lost?" he asked softly. The guard hesitated. "You look out of place." That word, place, hung in the air. The manager stepped closer, lowering his voice. "You people always try to walk in like you belong." The wind stilled. Even the flag above the club door stopped moving. Elias's face didn't flicker, but something in the air did. The sunlight shifted, turning the gold into fire. He bent down, brushed a speck of dust from his shoe, then straightened. "I see," he said. "Then maybe you should call the board. Tell them their 9 o'clock is waiting outside." The manager laughed. "I'll call security first." "You already have," Elias said. "He's standing next to you." For a heartbeat, the guard's hand twitched near his radio. Ryan looked between them, torn, whispering, "Maybe we should double-check." "Stay out of this, kid," the manager snapped. "He doesn't belong here." Elias's eyes met the manager's, calm and cutting. "You're right," he said. "Not yet. Before we continue, where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. And if you believe in dignity and justice, hit like and subscribe. These stories spark change, and we're glad you're here." Now back to Elias Reed. Elias Reed didn't move right away. He stood just beyond the shadow of the country club gate, the sun warming one side of his face while the other sat in shade. The perfect balance between patience and restraint. Behind him, the long driveway stretched toward a black sedan parked beneath the trees, its engine off, windows tinted. Inside, his phone buzzed once. He didn't reach for it. Not yet. The young staffer, Ryan, shifted uneasily. He could feel the weight of the moment, that subtle current between arrogance and quiet defiance. The manager, Trevor, looked him up and down again, still convinced he was in control. "I've worked here 6 years, Trevor said. "I can tell who belongs and who doesn't." Elias turned his head slightly. His tone carried no anger, only precision. 6 years, he repeated. "That's enough time to learn who you shouldn't underestimate." Trevor laughed, sharp and quick. "Don't get clever with me. I deal with people like you all the time. The ones who think confidence gets them through the door." Elias's gaze drifted toward the brass plaque beside the entrance, engraved letters gleaming in the sun. Langston Hill's Country Club, Esther, 1954. The year caught his eye. His father had been born that year, and still, even after decades, the same gate would have stopped him too. Voiceover cut through like thought turned sound. He'd seen this scene before, in restaurants, banks, airports. The words changed, but the meaning never did. "You don't belong." Ryan glanced at Elias, his throat tightening. "Sir," he murmured, "maybe you could wait while I talk to the main office." Trevor scoffed. "Ryan, don't waste your time. The board doesn't meet with walk-ins, especially not today." Elias finally pulled out his phone, his movement slow, deliberate. He scrolled once, tapped once, then placed it back in his pocket. "It's fine," he said quietly. "I can wait." Trevor leaned closer, voice low enough for only Elias to hear. "You really don't get it, do you? This club is private. We built it to keep things clean. You people make everything—" He didn't finish the sentence. Something in Elias's expression stopped him cold. Not a glare, not a threat, just an absence of fear so deep it unsettled him. The air grew heavy. Ryan swallowed, trying to find words. "Mr. Reed, was it? I'm sorry if this is a misunderstanding." Trevor rolled his eyes. "Don't apologize for doing your job." Ryan's voice cracked. "I wasn't talking to you." Trevor spun around, his authority slipping. The moment cracked like glass. Elias said nothing. He'd seen systems fracture before. Not from force, but from truth. Inside the club lobby, beyond the glass doors, two members paused mid-conversation. One of them, a woman in a cream blazer, tilted her head. "What's going on out there?" "Nothing," Trevor barked. "Just someone lost." Elias smiled faintly, a soundless acknowledgement of irony. "Lost," he repeated under his breath. Interesting choice of word. The hum of golf carts echoed from the distance. The guard lowered his hand but stayed tense, unsure whether to enforce or retreat. Trevor stepped back, muttering something under his breath, something that smelled of superiority and fear all at once. Elias's phone buzzed again. This time, he checked it. A single message appeared from Jade. "Assistant. Board meeting confirmed. They're expecting you at 9 sharp." Elias locked the screen. The corner of his mouth shifted, almost a smile. Voice over. He could have said it right then. Could have ended it. But some lessons are best delivered at full audience. He looked up at the country club sign again, sunlight glinting off the letters, and stepped one pace closer to the door. "Let's see," he said softly. "How far manners get me today?" The double doors of the country club stood a few feet ahead, polished wood gleaming like a mirror. Behind them, voices floated. Laughter, clinking glasses, the soft rhythm of privilege. Trevor, the manager, turned to the security guard with a smirk. "Make sure he doesn't move another inch." "Yes, sir," the guard replied, though his voice carried hesitation now, the kind that grows when authority starts to feel wrong. Elias Reed didn't speak. He adjusted his sleeve, a small motion that somehow steadied the air around him. His silence pressed harder than any argument. Ryan lingered near the entrance, fidgeting with the clipboard in his hands. His eyes darted between Trevor and Elias, torn between the rulebook he'd been trained to follow and the instinct whispering that something here wasn't right. Trevor folded his arms. "You're really going to wait here all morning?" "If that's what it takes," Elias said evenly. "For what? To get kicked out by someone higher up?" Elias's lips curved faintly. "No, to be recognized." The line landed with quiet precision. Trevor opened his mouth to retort, but for the first time he didn't have a quick comeback. The sound of approaching heels broke the silence. A woman in her 50s, hair pinned tight, carrying a folder under her arm, walked toward the group. Janet Shaw, the club's operations director. Her eyes swept the scene with trained efficiency. "What's the issue here?" she asked. Trevor straightened, almost relieved. "Unauthorized individual trying to enter. Claims he has a meeting with the board." Janet's gaze moved to Elias. "Do you have identification?" Elias reached into his inside pocket and handed her a sleek black card. She took it between two fingers, glancing at the name. E. Reed. Her brow furrowed. "There's no membership number here." "It's not a membership card," Elias said. "It's access." Janet looked up, puzzled. "Access to what?" "You'll find out soon enough." The pause that followed was subtle but heavy. Janet wasn't used to being spoken to like that, especially not by someone she didn't already know. She handed the card back, expression cool. "We'll verify your claim. In the meantime, please wait outside." Trevor grinned behind her shoulder, smug again. Elias pocketed the card. "Of course," he said, then added quietly, "Just make sure you verify with the right people." Janet nodded curtly and disappeared into the building. The door clicked shut, leaving the air sharp and dry. Ryan exhaled slowly. Sir, if it's really a mistake, I can... Elias cut him off gently. You don't have to fix it. Just remember it. Voiceover rolled in like memory. He remembered another door. Another voice saying the same word, wait outside. He was 25 then, interviewing for a job he was already overqualified for. They made him wait until everyone else left. When they finally called him in, they said the position had been filled. The wind caught the edge of his jacket as he looked toward the manicured greens beyond the gate. For a moment, the club's grandeur reflected in his eyes. Not envy, not anger, just understanding. He'd seen too many rooms like this. Trevor checked his watch. You've got 5 minutes before I call the police. Elias met his stare. Make it 3. I don't like wasting time. Trevor's grin faltered. Something in the man's tone, quiet, precise, absolute, didn't fit the story he'd built in his head. Who exactly are you? He asked. Elias didn't answer. He simply turned his gaze toward the entrance as the doors opened again. Janet reappeared, phone in hand, her expression now uncertain. Mr. Reed, she said slowly, the board. They're on their way. Trevor blinked. Wait, what? Janet didn't look at him. Apparently they've been expecting him. The silence that followed wasn't calm, it was the sound of ground shifting. Voiceover. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. The truth had started speaking for him. The club lobby exhaled a draft of cool, perfumed air when the doors opened again. Inside, chandeliers hummed faintly above a marble floor polished enough to reflect the tension walking in with Elias Reed. Trevor's confidence cracked at the edges now. He whispered something to the guard, too soft to hear him, but the man didn't move. Ryan followed a few steps behind, gripping his clipboard like a shield. The woman from earlier, Janet Shaw, kept her tone clipped. You can wait here. The board is finishing another meeting. Elias nodded once. He didn't thank her, didn't apologize for the disturbance either. He simply took a seat in one of the leather chairs by the window, calm, upright, deliberate. The kind of posture that looked like patience but was actually command. For a long moment, no one spoke. The silence became a character of its own, the air thick with unasked questions. Golfers passed through the lobby, glancing over, whispering. They saw the skin first, not the suit. The stillness unnerved them. Trevor tried to reclaim ground. You can't just sit there. This is a private members area. Elias's voice was almost gentle. Then consider this a lesson in hospitality. The manager's jaw tightened. You've got some nerve. Not nerve, Elias interrupted. Memory, Trevor frowned. Excuse me? Elias looked up, eyes steady. I've been in rooms like this before. Different decor, same temperature. The kind that drops a few degrees when I walk in. That sentence didn't come loud, but it landed like thunder wrapped in velvet. Ryan's pen slipped from his fingers and clattered on the floor. No one moved to pick it up. Janet cleared her throat, uncomfortable. Let's remain professional, shall we? Trevor smirked. I'm being professional. Elias turned slightly toward him. No, you're being predictable. The guard near the door shifted, his radio buzzing faintly, breaking the quiet. Outside, the sunlight filtered through the tall glass panes, casting slow-moving reflections on the marble, warm light crawling over cold space. Voiceover rose low, deliberate. He'd learned the value of silence early, that you don't out-yell ignorance. You outlast it. Elias leaned back, crossing one leg over the other unbothered. His phone lit up briefly on the side table. A message from Jade. Confirmed. Press hold on acquisition announcement until after board confirmation. Stay calm. He smiled slightly. Always am. Trevor watched him, increasingly uneasy. Something about the man's calmness didn't fit the story. The way he didn't fidget, didn't plead, didn't even explain himself. It wasn't defiance. It was ownership in disguise. Janet's phone rang, a sharp tone cutting the air. She answered quickly. Yes, this is Janet Shaw. Yes, he's here. Her eyes flicked toward Elias. Her tone changed. Oh, I see. Understood. She hung up slowly, her fingers trembling slightly as she straightened her jacket. Trevor noticed. What's going on? Janet hesitated. That was Mr. Callahan from the board, he said. To make sure Mr. Reed is comfortable. Elias didn't move. How considerate, he said quietly. Trevor blinked. What? But before anyone could answer, Ryan, the only one brave enough to speak truth out loud, he murmured, I told you he wasn't lying. Trevor shot him a glare. You stay out of this. Ryan took a small step forward anyway. His voice shook, but his words didn't. "No, sir. I won't. Not this time." For the first time all morning, the young man's defiance filled the room more powerfully than any uniform. Elias turned his head toward him, nodding once. A silent thank you. Voiceover. Sometimes the loudest voice in a room belongs to the one who finally decides to stop whispering. Outside the window, the flag of Langston Hills fluttered once, catching the light. Inside, Trevor's authority flickered like a candle in a storm. Elias stayed still, not frozen but anchored, waiting, watching. He knew what came next. The unraveling always began this way, not with shouting but with quiet cracks forming under the weight of truth. And right then, the sound came, the click of polished shoes against marble. The board had arrived. The lobby doors opened with a soft hydraulic hiss. 3 board members stepped in, 2 men in navy suits and a woman in ivory, the kind who never had to announce authority because the room already bent toward them. Conversation around the bar hushed. The pianist in the corner paused mid-note. Trevor straightened instantly, forcing a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Good morning, Mr. Callahan," he said too loudly. "Apologies for the, situation. We had an unregistered visitor attempting entry." Mr. Callahan's gaze drifted to Elias, seated calm as still water. "Is that so?" he said. Janet interjected quickly. He identified himself as Mr. Reed. I was about to verify his credentials. Elias rose slowly, his movements unhurried. Deliberate, a man accustomed to meetings where every second of silence belonged to him. "Good morning," he said evenly. "I was told the board would be expecting me." Callahan frowned. "Expecting you?" He turned to Janet. "Why wasn't I informed?" Elias tilted his head slightly. "Because the paperwork finalizing the transition was signed last night." The board members exchanged glances. Trevor's smile twitched, breaking at the edges. "Transition?" he echoed. "What transition?" Elias stepped closer, just enough to command the room. "Ownership," he said quietly. The word landed heavy, drawing the attention of everyone within earshot. Even the air seemed to pause. But he didn't elaborate, not yet. He wanted them to stew in their assumptions, let their own imaginations build the truth before he delivered it. Ryan, still standing near the desk, felt his heart race. He'd been silent for too long, watching the line between right and wrong blur under fluorescent light, and now it was burning clear again. Callahan blinked. "You'll have to explain yourself, Mr. Reed." Elias nodded once. "Gladly. But before I do, I'd like to ask something." He turned slightly, eyes on Trevor. "When I arrived, how did you decide I didn't belong here?" Trevor's throat tightened. "You weren't on the list. Anything else?" Elias pressed. Trevor hesitated. "You didn't look like a member." The words fell out half swallowed, half defensive, but entirely damning. Ryan flinched. He could feel the shift, the eyes of the room turning, the quiet judgment of the spectators realizing this wasn't just a misunderstanding. It was exposure. Elias didn't raise his voice. "You looked at me, measured me, and decided I couldn't be someone you'd serve." He turned toward the guard. "And you backed him up without question." Mitch, the guard, looked down, shame creeping up his neck. Then Elias looked at Ryan, the only one who hadn't joined the chorus of doubt. "And you," he said softly, "you tried to listen?" Ryan blinked, unsure if he should respond. "It didn't feel right, sir. That's all." Elias's expression softened just slightly. "That's where change begins." Voiceover layered over the moment. The witness doesn't always speak first. Sometimes he just decides not to stay blind. The board members exchanged looks. Callahan rubbed his temple. "Mr. Reed, if you're implying you have some stake in this club—" "I'm not implying," Elias said. "I'm confirming." He reached into his jacket and produced a slim black folder. No theatrics, no raised tone. He handed it to Janet, who opened it, scanning the first page. Her eyes widened. She turned the document toward Callahan. Trevor's voice cracked. "What is that?" Callahan's face drained of color. "Transfer of ownership. As of midnight." The room shifted in temperature again. Warm sunlight pouring through the glass, clashing with the sudden chill of realization. Ryan stepped back, whispering to himself, "He owns it." Elias turned toward the window where the club's golden emblem glimmered faintly. "Now you understand why I came early," he said. "I wanted to see how my new staff treats its guests." Trevor opened his mouth, no words came out. Voiceover. "Sometimes justice doesn't storm in through the door. It just walks through the same one they tried to close." And for the first time, the silence didn't belong to the club. It belonged to him. The words, "transfer of ownership," hung in the air like a sentence delivered by something higher than law. Quiet, factual, irreversible. Janet's lips parted as she scanned the document again, her voice faltering. This says Reed Holdings acquired Langston Hills Country Club and all attached property rights effective today." Trevor blinked, his face draining. "That's not possible," he muttered, stepping closer as if proximity could rewrite the truth. "I would have known. We would have been told." Elias didn't answer. He simply looked at him, and the silence pressed harder than any accusation could. Mr. Callahan straightened his tie, the motion covering a tremor in his hand. "Mr. Reed, this is unexpected. There must have been some miscommunication." Elias finally spoke. "The only miscommunication was assuming my presence needed your permission." It was soft, but every syllable carried iron. Ryan, standing a few feet away, let out the smallest breath, part disbelief, part relief. He'd felt it from the start. Something different in the way this man occupied space, as though the ground itself deferred to him. Trevor's voice cracked. "So what, you just bought this place?" Elias's gaze stayed steady. "No, Mr. Trevor, I invested in it. Because power isn't about owning things, it's about who you let in." He turned, glancing briefly at the chandelier. At the walls lined with black and white photos of men shaking hands through decades, all of them one shade of history. "But I suppose we'll be updating the portraits soon." A faint laugh rippled somewhere near the bar, uncomfortable, nervous, the kind that betrays guilt. Janet tried to regain composure. "Mr. Reed, I apologize for the earlier misunderstanding. It's been a hectic morning." Elias didn't take the apology. Misunderstanding implies confusion. You weren't confused. You were confident. The words hit harder than raised voices ever could. Trevor took a half step back, his breath uneven. "Look, I was doing my job. Then maybe your job needs redefining," Elias said, tone measured. "Because if doing your job means humiliating people at your gate, this club doesn't deserve its reputation." The young staffer Ryan shifted again, shoulders squared now. "Sir, if I may..." Elias looked his way and Ryan continued. "I've worked here a year, and what he's saying is true. People like you, people who look like you, get stopped all the time. Not just guests. Delivery guys, drivers, even members. We pretend it's procedure." His voice cracked, but he didn't stop. "It's not." The room froze. Trevor glared, furious. "Ryan, that's enough." But Elias raised a hand. "No, let him finish." Ryan swallowed hard. "It's not protocol. It's prejudice. We just hide it behind policy." For a heartbeat, no one breathed. Then Elias nodded. "Thank you," he said. Voiceover seeped in, steady and reflective. "Change never begins with the powerful. It starts with the one person who decides to tell the truth in front of them." Mr. Callahan adjusted his cufflinks, trying to anchor his composure. "Mr. Reed, perhaps we can discuss this privately." Elias turned to him. "No, privately is how it stays buried." The words sliced through the polished air. Outside, sunlight poured across the golf course, the kind of light that revealed every imperfection in the glass windows. Inside, every reflection now carried a different truth, one they could no longer avoid seeing. Trevor's face twisted, his pride scrambling for oxygen. "You can't just walk in here and start lecturing." Elias cut him off. "I didn't walk in. I was invited by the deed you ignored." He stepped forward slowly, stopping just inches away from Trevor, his voice dropping low enough for the entire room to lean in. "You looked at me and saw a problem. I looked at you and saw a culture." Trevor flinched but couldn't respond. Elias turned toward the staff. "From this moment on, Langston Hills will be restructured. Policy, personnel, protocol. And the first change begins with how we greet people at the door." He glanced toward Ryan. "You'll report directly to operations starting next week." Ryan blinked. "Sir, I don't understand." "You will," Elias said. "You just passed your first test, humanity." The room was silent again, but this time, it was a silence of reckoning. The sound of a building realizing it had new rules now. Voiceover. Justice doesn't always roar. Sometimes it arrives in a suit, speaks calmly, and changes the locks. For a few seconds, no one moved. The marble floor reflected the stunned faces of people who had just watched their world reorder itself in real time. Trevor's jaw tightened until his knuckles turned white around the edge of the reception counter. Janet's tablet dimmed to black in her shaking hands. Only Ryan stood straighter, as if a weight had slid off his back. Elias Reed took in the silence like oxygen, calm, grounded. The only still figure in a room built to make others shrink. Trevor finally spoke, his voice trembling but still dripping with that managerial arrogance that refuses to die even when cornered. You think you can just come in here and talk down to me? I've given this club 6 years of my life. Elias didn't blink. And in 6 minutes, you showed me why it needed to change. The guard shifted near the door, torn between obedience and respect. Ryan glanced at him, whispering, "It's over, Mitch, don't make it worse." Trevor slammed his fist against the desk. The sound echoed like a gunshot across the lobby. "You can't fire me. Not like this." Elias's tone didn't change. "I haven't yet. I'm giving you a chance to show me you know how to leave with dignity." Trevor's eyes burned. "You don't belong here," he spat. "You think you can buy your way into class?" "This place was built on land owned by my grandfather," Elias interrupted. The words sliced through Trevor's sentence like lightning through glass. He stepped forward slowly, his voice steady, almost intimate. "He was denied membership in 1974. They told him the same thing you just told me." The room stilled. Even the hum of the air conditioner seemed to fade. Voiceover, low and deliberate. History doesn't repeat itself by accident. It repeats because people like Trevor keep handing it the microphone. Trevor's defiance faltered. "That's a lie." Elias didn't argue. "You're standing on it," he said simply, glancing down at the marble floor beneath them. Janet looked from one man to the other, her face pale. "Mr. Reed," she began softly, "if there's been wrongdoing—" "There has," Elias said. "And I don't need an investigation to prove it. I just needed you to watch it happen." Ryan looked toward Janet, his voice trembling with both fear and hope. "Ma'am, I saw it too." From the moment he walked up, Trevor didn't ask, and he assumed. "It happens here all the time." Trevor spun on him. "You're done, kid. You'll never work in this industry again." But Elias's voice cut through him like a command. "He will, under my management." Trevor froze. Elias turned slightly, his expression still calm but colder now. "Your mistake wasn't underestimating me. It was doing it in front of witnesses." For a moment, no one breathed. Then the sound came, faint, mechanical, as one of the guests near the bar raised a phone, recording quietly. Another followed. Whispers rippled. "It's the new owner. That's him. He's firing them." Trevor's face flushed red. "You can't humiliate me in front of everyone." Elias's answer was soft, deadly precise. "You did that yourself. I'm just ensuring the audience is honest." Janet's phone buzzed again. She looked down, reading a short message before her expression shifted. "Mr. Reed, corporate headquarters just confirmed the system update. Your name is listed as the controlling executive." "Good," Elias said. "Then let's make it official." He turned to the guard. "Mitch, escort Mr. Trevor off the property." He's suspended pending review. Mitch hesitated, eyes flicking between them. "Sir, Elias's voice hardened slightly. "Do it respectfully. He's still human." The guard nodded slowly, stepping forward. Trevor tried to pull away, but Mitch's hand was steady. "Come on, man," he muttered quietly. Trevor's protests echoed down the marble hallway until they faded into the distance. Elias watched him go, then turned back toward Janet. "We'll rebuild this place. Not its walls, its manners." Voiceover slid in, slow and certain. "Power doesn't just replace what was broken. It decides what's worth keeping." Ryan stood nearby, silent but smiling faintly. For the first time, he saw the club for what it could be. Not a fortress, but a door. Elias reached for his phone, pressing one number. "Jade," he said, "send in the media release draft. The story starts today." Outside, sunlight spilled across the steps of Langston Hills. The sign gleamed gold, but beneath it everything had changed. Outside, the world had shifted from quiet judgment to visible attention. A handful of guests stood by the glass doors now, phones out, pretending to check messages while recording the fallout. Inside the lobby, Trevor's voice was fading down the hall, a thin echo of protest swallowed by distance. What remained was silence, the heavy kind that follows truth when it's no longer deniable. Elias Reed exhaled once, slow and deliberate, as if releasing years of inherited patience. He turned toward Janet. "Get the staff together," he said softly. "All departments. I want everyone present." She hesitated. "Now?" "Yes," Elias replied.
Now. The command carried no volume, yet everyone heard it.
Within minutes, waiters, caddies, receptionists, and maintenance crew trickled into the lobby. Some looked curious, others nervous. A few had seen enough of what happened to know something monumental had cracked open. Ryan stood near the front, still holding his clipboard, but this time his posture was different. Straight, certain. Janet cleared her throat, stepping beside Elias. "Everyone, this is Mr. Elias Reed." He stopped her gently. "No introductions needed. You've all already met me, one way or another." Murmurs flickered through the crowd. Elias paced slowly, hands clasped behind his back, the rhythm of someone who leads boardrooms, not demands applause. "I came here unannounced this morning," he began. "Not as a test of loyalty, but as a mirror. I wanted to see how this club greets people who don't look like they own it." A few heads lowered. One woman near the bar whispered, "He's the owner?" Ryan nodded once. Elias continued, his tone even but laced with steel. "Some of you treated me with respect, some with suspicion, and some with the kind of arrogance that doesn't require proof. Just history." He turned to face them fully, sunlight cutting a sharp edge across his profile. "I'm not here to fire everyone. I'm here to change what this place stands for. Langston Hills will no longer be a country club for the few. It will be a legacy for everyone who earns it." Voiceover entered like a slow current. He wasn't angry. He was done being quiet. And that for men like him was louder than rage. From the crowd, a middle-aged groundskeeper raised a trembling hand. "Sir, does that mean new management?" Elias nodded. "It means new values." Janet looked uneasy. "Mr. Reed, some members won't like that." Elias smiled faintly. "Some members don't have to stay." A ripple moved through the room, disbelief mixed with liberation. Someone clapped once, then stopped, unsure if it was allowed. Ryan broke the tension. "If you want help rebuilding, sir." "I'll stay." Elias turned to him. "Good. You'll lead the first staff audit. I trust you'll treat people better than you were taught." Ryan blinked. "Me? I'm just the only one who told the truth when it mattered," Elias said. The sentence hit with quiet authority. Ryan nodded, jaw tight, eyes glinting with something close to pride. Elias looked around the lobby again. For too long, places like this survived by deciding who belonged. That ends today. The front doors opened suddenly, letting in a flash of light, the afternoon sun striking across Elias's face like a spotlight. A few reporters had arrived, tipped off by a leak from someone inside. The cameras rolled, their lenses reflecting the man who had turned humiliation into history. A reporter's voice rose above the hum. "Mr. Reed, what made you buy Langston Hills?" Elias looked toward her without breaking his calm. "Because I was tired of asking for entry." The crowd went still again. Voiceover. "Justice doesn't always wait for applause. Sometimes it just stands steady and lets the world catch up to it." Elias gestured toward the doorway. "Let them in," he told Janet quietly. "Every story needs witnesses." As the reporters stepped forward, cameras flashing in the warm gold light, Elias Reed stood unshaken. The same man who had been refused entry an hour ago now commanding the stage of his own making. And for the first time in its 70-year history, Langston Hills Country Club opened its doors not out of privilege, but out of truth. The lobby, once the fortress of exclusivity, now thrummed with something new, the low hum of attention. Reporters had gathered near the glass doors, microphones ready, cameras blinking like restless eyes. The afternoon sun spilled amber light across the marble, turning the once cold space into a kind of stage. Elias Reed didn't need a podium. He stood in the center, sleeves slightly rolled, posture unbroken. The board members hovered to the side, suddenly small against the weight of what was unfolding. Ryan stood behind him, equal parts awe and fear. A journalist in a navy blazer called out first. "Mr. Reed, are the reports true? You were refused entry to your own property this morning." Elias's voice was calm even. "That's correct. Do you intend to press charges?" He shook his head. "No, I intend to press change." The words carried through the lobby, bouncing off marble and metal. A few guests, still lingering from brunch, lowered their champagne glasses mid-sip. Another reporter stepped forward. "How do you respond to those who say you provoked this? That you came unannounced to create a spectacle?" Elias almost smiled. "If dignity becomes a spectacle, then maybe we've forgotten what silence looks like." He turned slightly toward the staff behind him, the witnesses, the accomplices, the newly awakened. "What happened here isn't new. It just happened to the wrong man on the wrong morning. And I won't let it be forgotten." Trevor's voice, faint but sharp, drifted from the corridor where he stood half-shadowed, escorted but not gone. "You're turning this into a race thing," he snapped. "That's all this is." Elias turned toward him slowly, gaze steady but cold. "No," he said. "You turned it into that the moment you decided I couldn't belong." The crowd's murmur grew. Cameras caught the moment, the glare, the stillness, the imbalance of power flipping right in front of them. Voiceover steady and cinematic. He wasn't here to shame them. He was here to document what shame looks like when it realizes it's been filmed. Janet tried to regain order. "Ladies and gentlemen, let's—" But Elias raised a hand and she stopped. His quiet carried more weight than any policy ever written. "I'm not here to burn this place down," he said. "I'm here to rebuild it." Langston Hill's was founded on exclusion, on the idea that status earns respect. Starting today, respect will earn status. A ripple moved through the crowd, curiosity, disbelief, admiration. One of the reporters lowered her mic slightly. "And what happens to those responsible?" Elias's tone softened, though his words didn't. "They'll leave with lessons instead of paychecks." Ryan looked toward him, his voice quiet. "Sir, what about the rest of us?" Elias met his eyes. "You stay, you learn, and you teach others to do better." For a moment no one spoke. Outside, a golf cart rolled by, the soft hum breaking the silence like an afterthought from the old world. Elias turned back to the cameras. "This isn't about a gate. It's about who we keep outside of it. The next time someone like me walks up, don't ask for their membership. Ask for their name. That's where humanity begins." Flashbulbs burst like fireworks. Ryan blinked under the glare. Janet stood frozen, caught between embarrassment and relief. Then Elias's phone buzzed. "Jade, board signatures received." He looked down, then back up at the crowd. "As of this moment, the official ownership transfer is complete." One reporter asked softly, "What will you do first as owner?" Elias looked around, the faintest smile touching his lips. "I'll walk through the front door again. This time no one stops me." Voiceover closing the scene like a curtain. "Revenge ends arguments. But justice, real justice, rewrites them." He stepped away from the lights, from the noise, from the people who had doubted his name. The sunlight caught his cufflink, glinting against the engraved initials ER outside. The door stood open. The same one that had refused him entry an hour before. He walked through it, not as a guest, not as a victim, but as the man who owned every inch beyond it. The flash of cameras faded behind him as Elias Reed stepped deeper into the club's main hall, the same hallway where portraits of founders lined the walls like a quiet tribunal. Dozens of white faces, frozen in sepia, stared down with the confidence of men who believed their world would never change. Now it had. Elias slowed his pace, letting the echo of his shoes mark each step. Ryan followed a few paces behind, his clipboard gone, replaced by the weight of witnessing something historic. Janet trailed near the door, trying to hold herself together while messages flooded her phone. Board members, sponsors, panicked shareholders, all demanding clarity. "Sir," she called gently, "if we move too fast, this could cause a PR storm." Elias didn't turn. Good. Storms clean what the sun can't. He stopped before one portrait, a man with silver hair and a cigar, smiling above a gold plaque that read Charles Whitmore, Founding Chair, 1954. Ryan came up beside him, whispering, "That's the guy who built the club?" Elias's eyes didn't leave the frame. "He built the walls. My family built the ground." The words hung in the air, heavy but unforced. Voiceover. "Every monument has two histories, the one written in stone and the one buried beneath it. From behind, the rhythmic click of heels approached. Janet again, nervous but trying to regain authority. Mr. Reed will need your signature on the transition documents. The staff and members are waiting for an official statement. Elias turned, his expression soft but unreadable. They've already had one. Janet blinked. You mean the press? He nodded. That was the statement. The truth in front of witnesses. She hesitated, eyes darting to the staff still gathered near the lobby. Some were whispering. Others stood silently, unsure whether to applaud or hide. Elias walked back toward them. For years, this place rewarded familiarity over fairness. That ends now. If you can't treat every person who walks through that door with respect, you can't work here. He paused. And if you can, you'll have a future here, not just a paycheck. Ryan's voice broke the silence. You're not firing everyone? Elias shook his head. No, I'm not punishing people for surviving under bad leadership. I'm giving them a choice to do better. Trevor's voice erupted again from the hall, distant but defiant. You think they'll stay after this circus? Elias didn't turn around. They'll stay because integrity doesn't scare them. Mitch, the security guard, stepped forward, hat in hand. Sir, I owe you an apology. I didn't think. I just followed orders. Elias regarded him quietly. That's the problem, Mitch. Too many people follow orders that don't deserve obedience. He extended a hand. You've got a chance to follow something better. Don't waste it. The guard gripped his hand, surprised, rather grateful. Janet finally lowered her phone, sighing. The board wants to know your plans. Elias looked out across the vast sunlit hall. We'll host a new event, open to the public. Free entry, no membership list. Let the city see what change looks like. Janet blinked, caught off guard. Here at Langston Hills? Exactly here, Elias said. Let the place that once excluded people become the stage where inclusion begins. Ryan smiled faintly. What should we call it? Elias looked back toward the portraits on the wall, the ghosts of old power staring down. The reopening, he said. For everyone. Voiceover swept in like closing light. He didn't tear down their house. He just opened the doors they built too small. Outside, the wind picked up across the golf course, carrying the faint sound of workers clearing space for something new. Inside, the staff began moving quietly, purposefully, like a building learning how to breathe again. And at the center of it all, Elias Reed stood beneath the sunlight pouring through the skylight, a man who had turned humiliation into heritage, without ever raising his voice. By late afternoon, the gold light outside had deepened into amber. The once exclusive lounge of Langston Hills Country Club, where laughter had always sounded the same, now buzzed with a new kind of quiet energy. The staff was moving differently, not rushed, not fearful, just aware. Elias Reed sat near the window, jacket off, sleeves rolled. The air around him felt lighter, though nothing about him said relaxed. He was a man who carried stillness like a signature. Ryan stood nearby, reviewing a list on his phone. We've notified every department. Word's spreading fast. Some members are already canceling. Elias nodded. Then we found the ones who were here for the wrong reasons. Janet approached, cautious but composed. Sir, Trevor's gone. He emptied his locker, didn't say a word. The board recommends we avoid confrontation. Elias didn't look up. He confronted himself long before I arrived. There was something about the calm in his tone that made even apology feel unnecessary. A knock sounded on the glass door. The security guard, Mitch, entered quietly. Sir, the reporters are outside again. They want one last comment before they leave. Elias smiled faintly. They already got the story. They just don't know how it ends yet. He stood and walked toward the lobby where sunlight spilled across the floor like liquid gold. The room looked the same, but the energy had shifted. Even the chandeliers seemed to hang differently, less like crowns, more like mirrors. Voiceover rose in slow rhythm. When power changes hands, walls don't crumble. They just start listening. Outside, the air smelled like cut grass and rain. The reporters turned as he stepped out, microphones half raised. Mr. Reed, will you rename the club? One asked. Elias paused, his reflection caught in the glass doors behind him, the same doors that had once refused him. Names don't matter, he said. Behavior does. A murmur spread through the crowd, but Elias wasn't done. This club will remain Langston Hills, he continued. Not because I want to honor its past, but because I intend to redefine it. Let the same name tell a new story. Ryan, watching from inside, smiled. Janet exhaled a breath she didn't know she was holding. Even the staff at the reception desk straightened, shoulders squaring as if they'd just inherited a sense of belonging. Then, from the parking lot, the low hum of an engine approached. A black sedan stopped at the curb. The back door opened and Trevor stepped out. He looked smaller now, stripped of uniform confidence, his face pale and drawn. He hesitated, then walked toward Elias. "Mr. Reed," he said, voice low. "I wanted to apologize. I was wrong." Elias turned slowly. The silence stretched long enough to make the apology echo. "I know," Elias said simply. Trevor swallowed. "I didn't mean—" "You did," Elias interrupted. "That's why it matters." Trevor's eyes flickered between guilt and confusion. Elias continued, "If you're sincere, then learn from this. Go build something where respect isn't a currency, it's the entry fee." Trevor nodded once, defeated but humbled. He extended a hand. Elias looked at it, then shook it, firm, brief, final. Voiceover layered over the gesture. "Forgiveness isn't weakness. It's proof you've already won." As Trevor walked away, Ryan stepped outside, hesitant. "Sir, you didn't have to do that." "I know," Elias said. But he did. The horizon burned orange as the sun began to sink behind the trees. Elias turned back toward the club, watching the reflection of the sky spread across the tall glass facade. "Tomorrow," he said quietly, "we start over." Ryan nodded. "The reopening?" Elias smiled. "The reclaiming." They stood there a moment longer, two men from different worlds looking at the same sunset and, for once, seeing the same color. Voiceover closed the moment. Some victories are quiet. The kind you don't toast with champagne, but with the sound of doors staying open. Inside, lights flickered on, illuminating a place that was finally learning how to welcome the world it had ignored for too long. Morning again. The next day, Langston Hill's Country Club glowed under a fresh sunrise, the kind of golden light that made everything look new, even the old. The flag swayed gently above the entrance, no longer a symbol of exclusivity, but of something reclaimed. The gates were open. Wide. Elias Reed arrived early, walking up the same stone path where just 24 hours ago he had been stopped, questioned, measured. Today no one stood in his way. Instead, two young attendants greeted him with open smiles and coffee in hand. "Good morning, Mr. Reed," one said. Elias nodded, the corner of his mouth lifting slightly. Now that's how a place introduces itself. Behind him, banners fluttered. The Langston Hills reopening for everyone. Guests from every background walked in. Families, golfers, former employees, and curious locals who had never dared to step inside these walls before. Inside, Ryan and Janet oversaw the setup. Tables lined with fresh linen, name tags for community leaders, local journalists, students. No member list, no velvet ropes. Just space. Ryan looked up as Elias entered. "It's all ready, sir. Press is outside. The mayor's on the way." Elias gave a single nod. "Let them in." "Today we don't announce power. We announce purpose." He walked toward the grand staircase where the club's founding portrait still hung. For a long moment he stared at them, the faces of men who once wrote the rules. Then he turned to Janet. "Take them down. Keep them in the archives. We'll replace them with new ones. Every face, every color, every person who helped rebuild this place." Janet hesitated, then smiled. "Yes, sir." Voiceover, slow and deliberate, he didn't erase history. He reframed it, so the story would no longer whisper who didn't belong. The main doors opened again. Reporters, local families, and former staff filled the marble hall. The same chandeliers sparkled, but the light felt different now. Softer, warmer, human. Elias stepped up onto the first stair. No notes, no podium. Just his voice. "When I walked through this gate yesterday," he began, "I was told I didn't belong. Today I walk through it not to prove them wrong, but to prove what's possible." The crowd fell silent. Even the wind outside seemed to still. This building used to decide worth by wealth. That ends now. Langston Hills will serve the city that surrounds it, not stand above it. Membership won't be bought. It'll be earned, through contribution, mentorship, and community service. A ripple of applause began, small, hesitant, then spread like a rising tide. Ryan looked around, stunned, his eyes glassy. Janet clapped too, her hands trembling just slightly. The moment wasn't corporate. It was personal, Elias continued. Some of you were here yesterday. You saw what happens when prejudice meets patience. That's not weakness. That's control. Because true power doesn't shout. It doesn't need to. It just keeps building. He paused, letting the words breathe. This isn't my victory. It's our beginning. Flashbulbs popped again. Not for scandal this time, but for story. Outside, the morning sunlight spilled through the open doors, cutting across Elias's face like a crown of warmth. Voiceover returned one last time. Soft, cinematic, resolute. He came as a man denied entry. He left as the standard they could no longer lower. He didn't raise his voice. He raised the bar. Elias stepped down from the staircase. Ryan handed him a coffee. The laughter of guests filled the lobby, mingling with the faint sound of jazz. He looked toward the open gate, the same one that had once symbolized division, and smiled. Justice hadn't shouted. It had simply walked through the front door, and this time it stayed open.